secret mission was complete. The USS Indianapolis had successfully delivered the atomic bomb components to Tinian. That is where the U.S. had made the world's largest airbase. The USS Indianapolis was a direct contribution to the World War II's ending. But they didn't know the journey had just begun. Most of the information I got for the speech is from Naval History and Heritage Command. The crewmen didn't know, but this would be the final voyage on the USS Indianapolis. The Japanese submarine I-58 had seen the Indianapolis and had it in its sights. It took aim and fired a torpedo. The Indianapolis was on its expedition from Guam to Leyte, and it was then done. The ship had sunk. The Indianapolis was on its way to join the USS Idaho to begin training for a Japan invasion that they had been planning for. The USS Indianapolis never made it to that training because of the torpedo. It was early morning, around midnight of July 30th, 1945, when the Indianapolis was hit. The crewmen, most of them would have been asleep because it was the middle of the night. At the time, there were about 1,200 crewmen, but soon that number would drastically change. The National Museum of the Pacific War states it took just under 12 minutes for the ship to completely sink. That's not a lot of time for 1,200 people to get off of a ship safely. The Naval History and Heritage Command says there wasn't enough life rafts for all 1,200 people, and the rafts that were on the boat, not even all of them deployed because it sunk so fast. That left crewmen desperate, reaching for life jackets and debris that they found in the water just to stay alive. Now that everyone was in the water, they had to find a way to communicate for a rescue team. It wasn't until August 2nd that they were discovered. It was 4 days that the crewmen waited because it was so secretive. The Navy didn't recognize that the Indianapolis was missing, so it could have been even longer that the survivors were waiting in the Philippine Sea. Them being discovered was actually accidental by a U.S. Navy plane that was flying unusually low on an unrelated mission. That is when the crewmen were spotted, and after that, other planes and ships arrived to help rescue them. As you can imagine, the 4 days that the crewmen were waiting were very strenuous. At the beginning of the voyage, there were 1,200 crewmen, but according to the National World War II Museum of New Orleans, only 316 of them survived. Throughout the 4 days, there were many components of trouble that the crewmen faced, like drowning and dehydration. There were also many shark attacks. The main enemy while in the water were protecting themselves and each other from the sharks. The fear that the men had of waiting in the shark-infested water for they didn't even know how long is unimaginable. And the bravery and strength that those men had to even step on the Indianapolis is very, truly admirable. I'm sure they knew of the hardships that they would have while on this journey, but coming face to face to a shark that could ultimately end their life probably wasn't one of them. The sinking of the USS Indianapolis was a very impactful tragedy for the conclusion of World War II. Close to 900 lives and voices were lost on the USS Indianapolis, but we give thanks that 316 people survived and we are able to read and hear their stories today.